All right. So we created an application, campaign management system, and then the question was that from where we download the XST. So to download the XST, you can open the CDT, and then you can go to the setting icon, and you can see download XST. Okay. Is that Venkat? Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is how you download the XST file. Okay. All right. Now you asked that you didn't understand the concept of data stored entity. You will once we will start using the data stored entities to read and write operation. We will understand because without this data stored entity, we cannot actually perform the read and write. There is a way in record, but if you want to do it on the UI basis, right now how the Appian is working, so you need this entities to perform the read and write operation. Okay. All right. So let's say we'll check quickly. How do we we'll create the entity table as well. The inventory table, and then we'll see how if we need to add some inventory to the system. How do we do that? Okay, that is also one of the things because we need to add the user, employee details to the table. We need to use the inventory details to the table, right? So user can also go add a new inventory, update an existing inventory, and then also they can go and delete any particular inventory, right? All right. So let's go and create the table first for the inventories. So we talk about the inventories field, and then let me open that file. Okay, just a second. Model. So we talk about the inventory field, and then we say that we will have inventory ID, inventory name, inventory type, cost, and inventory subcategory. So let's start doing that. So we have a new table. So
I think we should have a separate table for inventory subcategory.
right,
Where
subcategory
inventory
different table.
yes, because category is software or hardware. Then under the software and hardware, there can be different subcategories. Software like Adobe software or hybrid software, something like this. Hardware say mouse, keyboard, monitor, laptop.
Mhm.
So this is subcategory.
Okay.
Category software, hardware, network.
Okay. So we have CMS underscore inventory. We have, so in that case, we cannot have inventory ID here, right? Because inventory IDs are the actual inventories you're putting into some other table. So that should not be inventory ID here. It's a category of the parent category, right? That you can have. So you can create one reference table. In that reference table, you can have the inventory categories, and then you can use that inventory categories ID here to create the actual inventories. Okay. So let's say, or what we can do, we can let's have inventory ID. It's gonna be primary key and auto increment. Okay. And then we can have inventory name. We will not have the subcategory. We will have just the parent category here. So let's say I want to put here as a 50 characters, or let's say 100 characters long. Initially it can be null, and then we can have inventory cost. That could be decimal, and then we have inventory type. Not the type. Type we
The
can define it here.
subcategory will have cost.
No, one second. We can have inventory category here, right? So for each inventory we can define it's a software or hardware, and then we can have, we don't need a subcategory in that case, and we don't need a type. So we have the inventory ID, the name of it, and then cost of it, and then category I can use varchar. I'll put it, let's say, 25 characters long. I'll put like hardware or software here itself. So now this will have all, we'll have in the one table without having the sub relations. Okay. So now, if you want inventory is available, we can have is available parameter, right? So let's say we can have is available, and I'm going to put it as a tiny int, right? And then we can see the preview SQL, create the SQL code for you, and hit and save, right? So now this will create the table for us, inventory. Now you can simply, who can guide me? How do I create a CDT for this inventory?
Go to the applications and then new and
Okay.
click on data type. Click on data type.
Uh-huh. Which option I have to select?
Create from the database, third one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a question here though, when
Uh-huh.
I do it from try to do it from the community, right? From the create data type, I don't
Uh-huh.
have that JBDC. I have two drop downs. I chose one. It does it matter which one I need to choose?
So what are the options you have there?
I don't know. I
Because that's the something new they have started nowadays. So they might be using two data stores. Okay, I mean for two different data stores for that environment. So whichever you will create, your table will get created to that particular data source.
okay.
Yeah. Continue. And what's the best practice we should follow here?
Description, right?
Okay. And
Uh, camel case for the field names.
right. All right. Now this time I'm going to let this checkbox check. Let me also open the data store that we have created. This data store, right now we see there are two entities, right? Okay. What I did, while creating this CDT, I let this checkbox check. In the entity name, I just given entity underscore entity to identify it uniquely. Otherwise, you can have the same name. I say create. My data store, I closed it. Okay. Now, if I go and say create this CDT along with the checkbox checked, if you go here, now open the data store again, you will see that this is being added automatically. Okay. We do not have to manually link it. Okay. So we can also, if you click on the verify, it will verify it. Right. You don't have to do that, but just to say it's working. Now let's say we have fields created here in the CDT is available, which is in tiny int into the database. But what we can also do, we can change this to Boolean, right? Because tiny int is referred by 0 and 1. Now we can change that to the Boolean, save the changes. This will also work. So how do I know that this is working or not? I will go and open the data store again and just click on the verify, because we have made some changes in the CDT. If I click on verify, it should map. So whatever changes we made to the CDT, it's still under matching with the database structure, because we are used tiny int. So tiny int, you can go with the number integer, which will accept only one, but you can also go with the Boolean, right? Tiny int, the purpose of the tiny int is a Boolean only. Okay, right. Now we have one more table to create it. transactions. We'll come to that. We'll create that later. But let's see. Okay, so what we have done, we have created everything. We have created a CDTs. We have created the data store, right? Now let's say I'm gonna add some value to the table. Okay, let's say I'm gonna add some inventory to the table. CMS underscore inventory. How do we insert some value, dummy value for now, so that we can see how to test the entities. I go and click on the insert. Okay, let's say I'm gonna have as a pen is one inventory item cost. Let's say I'm gonna put 5 rupees. Invent category, I say hardware, right? Or we can say items. Software, hardware, or what else we can have? Um,
Peripherals.
Sorry,
Peripherals.
peripherals,
Mhm.
and then is available. Yes. Let's say I'm gonna have another one is called let's say MS Office. It cost let's say 25 or maybe 1,000. It will come under the category software. It is available. Now let's say I hit on go. So if you
You,
go to the browse,
well, you changed it to Boolean, right? It's still showing as a tiny int.
no, in database it will be tiny int.
Okay.
In database we don't have boolean. Database, to represent a boolean we use tiny int. Okay. Now let's say I'm gonna use keyboard. Let's say I put 500. I'd say hardware is available, right? We can have few more. Let's say I'm gonna have notebook. Let's say 100 rupees. Peripherals. So if you go to the browse, now you see that we have 4 items available in my inventory. Okay, IDs are auto generated, right? IDs are auto generated, and then we have these names, and then cost, and then inventory category, and then is available or not. Okay, right. Now, if I would like to, this information is in the database. If I would like to bring this information to the Appian, how do we do that, right? So let's say because we want to display this items to the Appian interface, or maybe in the drop down, or maybe the category and all, right? So in that case, how do we bring this information to the Appian? All right, is that clear till now, guys? We just inserted some entries to the table.
Yeah, you just clicked on the inventory and click on insert, right? Then you entered everything.
Right, insert, and then we added the details here. Okay, now let's go and start creating a rule which should bring this information to the Appian label, and then we'll see how do we use in the interface and all. All right, so what we are going to learn today is query entities. This function is used.
Before we do that, can I ask you a question here? So
Yeah,
now
sure.
you have a database, you entered the database directly using insert. But if you want to
Uh-huh.
do it to do the CDT, how do you do that then? If I don't have a database.
I mean, if you can wait, we will see all those things, right?
Okay, sorry.
That, yeah. We'll see. Definitely, we'll see, right? When we create an interface and UI to add it, we'll see that. Okay. So now I go and say new expression rule. Now this expression rule will be creating to fetch the data from the database so that we can display on the UI whatever the list of the inventory we have it. Okay. So we can give the name accordingly. So we can say get inventories, right? So this rule will fetch the inventories from database or table. Okay, right? CMS inventory table. Yeah, I'll say create. Right. So now the function that we use to fetch the data from the inventory, from the table is called a bank query entity. This is a function which is required to fetch the data. You don't have to establish any connection or anything, right? It just we have already done that. We just have to configure it here so that we can bring the data from the database. So now it requires query entity requires couple of parameters. You don't have to remember. If you see here, if you click inside the functions parenthesis, in below it gives the description window. In the description window, it will tell you everything what it requires. So this query entity requires three parameters: entity, query, face total count. So we have entity, query, and face total count. It also says what is the type it needed. So entity, it says I need a data store entity, right? So let's say I'm gonna say entity. What's the type it requires? Data store entity. So for this table, we have created this data store entity, right? For the inventory. What is the name of that? CMS inventory entity, right? So if I go here and say CMS inventory entity, what do you think? Will it work or not?
You're giving them as a string, right?
Right. So this is as a string, as a text value. What it requires? It requires data store entity, isn't
Mm-hmm.
it?
Yes.
So how do we refer this? Because this is inside this one, right? So how do we refer this particular entity in our code? Isn't it? That's a thing. So to refer this particular thing in our code, we need to create a constant. If you remember, we talk about a constant that if you need to use a certain value many places, we can use that constant. And if you want to represent a folder, we can create a constant. Same way, we need to represent a data store entity. We need to create a constant. So we go to the new and say constant. Now, one best practice for the constant, not a best practice, a thumb rule, you can say that constant name should always be in capital. So we can say CMS data store entity underscore what's the name, inventory, right? So this is the name of the constant I'm going to put. I'll say this data store entity will connect with CMS underscore inventory entity, okay, table. So what should be type? Type should be data store entity. Once you select the data store entity, it will say which data store you want to connect. I'll say CMS, the one that we have created. Now inside this, how many entity we have? Three. Which one you want to select? The inventory entity. I selected that. Okay. Now copy this name, create. So once you create this constant, we can go to our code, and now we can represent that constant here. And to represent a constant, we use a prefix called CONS, constant, bang, and the name of the constant. Okay. Now this constant is a type of a data store entity. Now it is referring here. It should work. And then we have another parameter called query. So for query, we use a function. It is also mentioned here, a bank query. We say a bank query. Right now, if you click inside this a bank query, it will tell you what are the parameters it requires. Right. So first we will go with the paging info because this is required to bring the information. I'll use paging info. And for paging info, there's a function called a bank paging info. Everything is written in the documents and you can find it out. Right. So we say a bank paging info. And then we have a start index. So start index, like from where you want to bring the data, and then batch size. What's the batch size of data you want? Now, if you put 2, you will get only 2 set of data. If you put 5, you will get only 5 set of data. If you don't know how much data is there and you want all the data, you put -1. If you put -1, you will get all the data. This is enough for now to get the data from the database. If you click on the test rule, you see that it will bring all the information that it has in the table, all 4 inventories. All right. Any question till here, please?
In query, there are other parameters, right?
Right.
Besides, yeah, paging
So
info.
those parameters are for the for the filters, selections, and all that. We'll talk about all those, but we'll talk about step by step, right? Not at one time. So yeah, any questions in here, guys? How we are getting the data? We just need to configure the things, and it will fetch the data from the database. Any questions in here? No? Okay. So whenever user will query this rule, what it will do, it will bring all the data from the database, right? Now, what is the output of a query entity? You see, everything is a query entity here. So what is an output of this query entity? The output of a query entity is always a data subset. Okay, they might ask you the question in the interview, what is the output type of a query entity? So it's always be a data subset, which has all the information like start index and batch size, sorting info, and then it has a total count. After that data, how much data we have in the system, and then we have list of the datas, right? And then it has identifier. These are the output of the query entity. Now, if I want to work with only with the data, what we can do? We can simply say dot data at the end. If you see dot data at the end and click on the paste tool, all the other information will be gone. Only the pure data we will have along with us. Okay. Any question, guys? Is that clear? Yes, no? All right. So now let's say this is what we have. Now, if I want to bring the information based on the category, like if I pass the item category, then I should be getting the information, right? Inventory category. So how do we do that? How do we understand that, if I want to bring only the hardwares, I should be getting only hardwares. If I want to bring only the, based on the name, I should get only that details, right? Now imagine if it has millions of record, if you do -1, all the millions of record will try to fetch at one time, which will slow down your application. So we should be also providing some filters to it, right? So let's say I want to provide a filter called inventory category. If I pass hardware, I should get only hardware. If I pass peripherals, we should be getting information regarding that. Okay. So how do we do that? So first of all, inside this query function, we have one more parameter called logical expression. This logical expression is required to allow the user to provide the filters, right? So for logical expressions, what function we will require, you don't have to remember. You can simply refer to the below description window, logical expressions. It says with the function a bank query logical expression. You can say a bank query logical expression, right? Now inside this a bank query logical expression, we have many other filters like operators, logical expressions. Again, you can use filters and ignore the empty values. So let's say I'm going to use operators, because if you are going to use multiple filters, what kind of relationship you want to put in for those filters, right? So what are the possible values? If you put double quotes, it will give you the all possible values. Let's say I'm going to go with the AND operator, and then we have filters, right? We can have multiple filters. So I'll just put a curly braces, and then we can say a bank query filter, right? It will require certain things. Field, which field you want to apply the filter? So I would like to apply the filter on inventory category. So this should be same as your CDT parameter name. And then we have again operator with this field. What kind of operator you want to use? I'll say equal operator, because I want to go the exact match. And then we have the value. If I value, I say, let's say I'm going to say hardware, right? What is the error? No, it's gone. Okay. So the value says hardware. If I click on the trace tool now, what should happen? Any guess?
Only hardwares.
Right. If I click on this, I'll get only one item in the output, which is belongs to the hardware. Right. Now, if I put this hardware word in the code itself, then this code will be very static. It will always work only for hardware, isn't it? Which is not a good thing. What if someone wants the data from the software? So do I need to create another rule? Right? If someone wants to output for the peripherals, so do I need to create another rule? No, right? We should not be creating multiple rules for the same thing, isn't it? So
Mm-hmm. Constant.
not a constant, but we should be make this rule as a dynamic so that it can work for the multiple rules. So how we can make any rule as a dynamic rule? You remember the example of the do addition rule where we were
Uh,
adding the numbers, right? So what we can do?
Rule input.
Rule input. That's correct. So if I create a rule input here, I'll say inventory category, the type of text. Now what happens is that instead of this hardware here, I will refer this rule input. And how do I refer the rule input?
RI bank.
RI bank inventory category. Now if I go here and say software, if I click on this, I'll get the software. If I say peripherals, I get those two, right? So now this will become very dynamic. Whatever value you will pass to it, it will return the data according to you, right? Now let's say I want an input, like I want to search for peripherals, and then item name should be notebook. In that case, what should I do? We can have one more filter. So we can simply copy this query filter, paste it here, and here I'll say item inventory name, and then we can have another rule input. Inventory name is a type of text, right? And then here I can refer the inventory name, the RI, and let's say I want to pass notebook, right? So I got only one. Now, how this is restricting to the only one result? Peripherals, we have two items, but notebook, we have one item. So why this is being restricted to only one item? Anyone can guess why
you
this is
use
having only one item?
you use the AND operator, line number 6.
Right. We have used the AND operator here. If I go and change this to OR, then what will happen?
Both.
I'll get both the result. Now, if I go and change this to keyboard, then
Only one, I guess.
anyone else?
If there is no keyboard, right, then it
Yeah, we have
shows.
one keyboard. No, we have a
Yeah.
keyboard. We have a keyboard. We have two peripherals as an inventory category. We have keyboard in the inventory name. We have MS Office, notebook, pen, right? And then here we have passing this inventory category as peripherals and inventory name as keyboard. So how many output, and the operator is OR. So how many output we are expecting here?
Only one, because keyboard is the hardware, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So anyone else? We will get three outputs because it's an OR operator. It will first try to search with the peripherals, and peripherals is found two. So this is also true. So it will return the result according to that, and then it has the OR operator because no hardware keyboard is also matching, so it will return that too. So because it has OR operator, it returns all the three. Now what happens if I change this to AND?
It will fetch only one item.
Okay, anyone else? Venkat?
Mm,
So try to understand the query, what I'm trying to ask. Give me a data where inventory name is peripherals and inventory category is the peripherals and inventory name is keyboard.
nothing. No, nothing.
Sorry, 0 item. It will get
So
0.
we won't get anything, right? So that's the use of this operator here. Got it? So it will bring the result according to your requirement, whatever you have done here, right? Okay. So now you got it, Venkat. What's the use of data stored entity now?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that clear? So this is one part, like we are fetching the data. We'll see the how do we write the data. Perfect. Any question, guys, still here? This data stored entity.
So to create the entity, what did you do? This you just create
To
new
create the
entity.
entity or to create the constant?
No, no, no. To create the query.
So I just created one expression rule, and in
Okay.
expression rule I've written all this code.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Now it must be you guys were thinking, right? I said it's a very minimal coding, but why I'm writing all this code, right? The person who is not from the IT background, oh, this is too much coding for me, right? Isn't it? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right. Okay. I'll just let me copy this constant name. Let me delete this code. Done. You can see at the top, there's a icon called query editor. The second last icon here.
Mm-hmm.
Click on this. Right. Now we want to bring the data based on the data stored entity. Select that option. Pass that constant that we have created. Select it. Hit continue. I want all the rows. Right. If you want to sorting, let's say I want to sorting on the inventory name, or let's say if you want to sort on the by default it will be inventory ID. So let's say I want to sort on the inventory ID. Now the filters. I say add filter. I would like to apply the filter on inventory category. Condition I would like to have equal. We have all these conditions. You can see it here. In the value, we can say input variables. Whatever user is going to pass, we have already created this one. So I'll select inventory category. Add one more filter. Inventory name equals to input variables that we have created. Inventory name. I would like to add all the rows. I want to fetch all the rows. Click on the generate query. All the code that we did is now here. Without writing a single line of code, everything is here now. Is that clear? Tough? Everything
Mm-hmm.
is just a configuration. You
I
don't
see.
have to write the code,
At least
right?
you need to write the rules input, right? First, before you doing it, you
Right.
got to rules input.
So
Okay.
rule input also you can create directly from that window. Okay, you can also create a rule input directly from the window. Here, let me show you that option, rule input. If you click on it, it will allow you to create a new rule input. Okay. All right. Now I just want to put dot data. If I want to work with the only dot data, so it's like that. Now let's say I remove this. Click on the test rule. Okay. Easy. Any question, guys? Okay. Now who can guide me to create one more filter where the cost should be less than 100? Create a filter for me where the cost should be less than 100. I would like to see all the items. So let me show you the database. Right now we have okay, let's say the less than 500. Okay, I would like to return the list of the inventories where the items cost are less than equal to 500. So how many outputs should be there?
See.
Less than equal to 500. So 1, 2 and 3, right? So how do I write the query?
with this query in addition to the existing query or separate query?
Why do we need a separate query? An existing to this one only, right? We just need a filter, isn't it?
Okay. And you want to use the AND operator, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. We can have an error operator. So my requirement is that I don't pass. If I say I don't pass the category name, leave it. I just say return me the list of the inventories where the cost is less than equal to 500. Or even better, make it dynamic. Whatever the cost I will pass, that should return the items less than equal to that cost that I have given.
Mm-hmm. You can add filter again, one more. Query filter.
Right.
Query filter.
Right.
Line numbers between 16 and 17.
Okay.
And
What
the
should be the
field
field name?
cost.
Inventory cost. I should say copied. Okay. What
And
operator I should use?
greater than or equal to.
Less than or equal to, because we need less than or equal to.
And the value with the rule input you have to write again. Cost.
So we create one more rule input.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll say it's kind of a number integer. And then here I can say, okay. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if I say here 500, I'm not passing this category and all. Right. So we are getting 3 items. The one which has item cost as 5, 500, and 100. Right. What happens if I remove this equal sign from here?
Only 2.
Then we'll get only 2. Okay. Is that
But
clear, guys?
these 2 queries are running, right, already?
This query, we have one more parameter here, like number 23. You see that it says ignore filter values with empty values. So it will, if you do not provide any values, this will be get ignored. It will only work if you pass anything. Let's say I'm gonna say here as item name as notebook. Now, what could be the output here? So read the query. I'm saying return with the list of the inventories where the item cost is less than 500 and item name is notebook. So how many output I'll get?
1.
We'll just get 1 because this is matching. Now if I go and say return me the item where the inventory cost is 500, less than 500, and inventory name is MS Office. If you see here, MS Office cost is 1000. Now if I try to return, I'll get none, because there is no item where the name is MS Office and the cost is less than 500. That's why we get nothing. Okay. Now if I change this to OR, then we might get results. So let's say if I'm changing this to OR, and you can guess, let's see this data here and then tell me how many output I'll get. Let me call out the name. Okay, Sammy, you tell me. With this query, how many output I'll get?
Maybe 3.
Maybe? Why maybe? Code doesn't work on the maybe. It will give you the whatever you have written, exact things.
Yeah. Once go to the data, table.
Okay.
Yeah, 3.
Right. So we get 3 output because based on this query, we are getting 2 and then based on this query we are getting 1. So altogether 3. And why? Because we are using OR operator, right? Is that clear, guys? Query entity.
Mhm.
All right. Any questions? Okay. So today I will be sharing my environment access with you on the WhatsApp group. If anyone does not have their own environment, you can practice there also. Okay.
With yours, you have the database, right? You have the DB.
Yes. Just make sure you don't create more users there. Do not create any new users. Okay. And then do not share the credentials with someone else. All right.
Mhm.
I'll share it by today. Yeah, before we wrap up, any more questions in the query entity? No? Okay. So now it's time for a quiz. What is the name of the function that we use to retrieve the data from database?
Query.
No,
It's a bang logical query.
no.
Oh,
A bank query entity.
query entity. Okay.
Okay, right. And what are the parameters it has?
Logical expression and
No,
something
that
logical.
that is the part of some different function. It has entity and query and face total count. So how do you refer an entity? If I want to refer an entity to the query entity function, what do I
Using
need to
constant.
do?
Using
Constant.
constant.
Using constant, right? And what are the parameters a bank query function has?
Logical expression, operator,
Right. We've
and
seen the
page info.
right.
Page info.
Paging info. Right. We have seen these three. So logical expression, operators, and paging info. And what is the use of logical expression?
Using filters. Even
Filters.
filter.
So do we use operator inside the query or inside the logical expression?
Logical expression.
Right. So the query function does not have operator, right? Query function has only logical expression and paging info for now that we have seen. Operator is a part of logical expression function. And what function is required to apply the filters?
Query. Even query.
No. A bank query filter, right? And a bank query filter function has how many parameters?
3.
3. What are those?
Operator. Value. And the database field. Something.
The field, right? The field itself, right? Correct. And what is the output of a query entity?
Data. Dictionary.
No. No.
The
Data
three.
subset.
Data
Data
subset.
subset. Right. Data subset. And what are the parameters a data subset has? What are the things you get in the return?
Data.
Dictionary.
That's the dictionary is the data, right? The list of dictionaries will have the list of data. And
Batch size. Count.
yeah, paging info. The paging info has everything: start index, batch size, sorting, and then we get total count, and then we get identifiers. Okay, cool. Okay. All right.
Is the dictionaries
That
are equivalent to map? A single map equal to a single dictionary or something?
is right. Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. I will be sharing the account details shortly. Right? On the WhatsApp group.
So you will share the user ID password also to log in into the environment,
Obviously. Right.
and then we'll create new applications.
Yeah, you
There.
can create new application, but don't create new users. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right. And while creating the application, make sure you put some such abbreviations like your name or something, so that you can identify which application is yours. Okay.
Okay.
You
And
want
if
us to practice the same thing? Same?
that's on you. I mean, I will suggest go with something else where you can have something similar, but some different use case. But if you want to go with the same, that's on you. Right. Okay. Cool then.
Okay,
Let's
thank
wrap
you.
up for today. We can connect tomorrow and then we can continue the UI and all. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.